Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany. Today I'm bringing you a mobility startup from my native city Mainz, which is, if you're not in the traffic jam, approximately 25 minutes by car away from Frankfurt. It is also the location of the next mobility lab, where we do have a startup there, Airive, from which I would like to welcome the founder. Hey Markus, how you doing?
Hi Jörn, nice to meet you. I'm fine, thanks a lot.
Completely my pleasure. Before we started the recording, we talked that statistically speaking, a more senior founder has a greater chance of success. Statistically speaking, the best age to found a startup is 45. So you're in the prime age to found a startup. But first, let us talk a little bit about what you did before, because you did not just stumble on mobility. I stalked you a little bit on LinkedIn. By the way, everybody who'd like to reach out and contact you directly, go down here in the show notes wherever you're listening or viewing this. There will be a link to our blog, and on our blog there's your personal LinkedIn profile link as well. So that said, you've been spending your last 12 years with BMW. Tell me, do you privately still a BMW, and how did you get out of the automotive sector into startups?
Oh, thanks a lot. So thanks for regarding me as more senior. That's true. Yeah, I've spent my life, my professional work life in the automotive industry, not only in BMW, where I spent the last 12 years, that's for sure. I spent more than 25 plus years in automotive sales. So that means I'm a salesperson. And I've sold all kinds of services and products around the B2B mobility, starting with tires. I was working for Michelin, starting with outsourcing fleet management services, and finally arriving in BMW, selling cars to big companies on an international scale. And by the time I discovered that the upcoming digitalization, which I regard or observe since a couple of years, offers some opportunities. And I decided to get out there to enter a startup, and there I am.
Many people who are in the audience now get kind of the impression that you've been sitting there on a big desk and somebody from whatever company came over and said, "Oh, I would like to buy 200 BMWs. Let's smoke a cigar." Yes, but I do believe it is far away from that, what you see in the movies, right?
Oh yeah. You can have the impression that this is a strong brand. Everybody knows, on a worldwide scale, everybody knows BMW. So for sure, it's a strong brand and it helps. But the reality is as well that you need some salespersons to solve the problems that the customers arrive with every day on a daily basis. And for sure, it is necessary to coordinate the different activities toward an international customers, which really come up. So there is a strong network of dealerships, of sales staff, which is employed by BMW, and as well to communicate and to interact with the customers was one of the major experiences that I had during the last 12 years. So yeah, that's necessary.
Mm-hmm. I see. It sounds like you had a lot of fun there. So what made you leave your corporate life?
Simply opportunities. I strongly believe in digitalization and the opportunities that digitalization offers. So talking about repeating processes. So which led me to the founding of Airive. It was the observation that all of my customers frequently start a tender, a request for proposal to get information about discounts, about qualities and quantities, to communicate with the different partners in their mobility portfolio, be it a leasing company, be it a dealership, a car dealership, or be it the OEM itself. So it all was done on a highly manual basis, using Excel. And this is something which still goes on in today's life. So believe it or not, these guys are operating their businesses based on Excel. And it's a repeating workload that's coming up 1 to 4 times a year per company. And I discovered and I felt it's time to end up with this.
And before we talked, you told me about the opportunity came up at a family birthday, right? Where some of your friends told you, well, talk to another friend, and it went from there.
Yeah, it was a funny situation. My best man was present at the birthday of my wife, and we had this conversation on digitization and the opportunities that it offers or might offer. And he connected me with his best friend, his best buddy, which is the founder of the Next Mobility Lab. And there I am. So we reached out, arranged a meeting, and we started to discuss what possibilities come up with my ideas connected to the digitization and the possibilities that the Next Mobility Lab can offer and bring in. And by combining both efforts and approaches together, we founded or came up with Airive.
What have been some of the ideas that you did not realize?
Honestly speaking, we straight came to the point. Because there was the feeling of having a real need in the market to end up with this analog or partly analog exercise of purchasing corporate mobility. Corporate mobility basically means enterprise mobility. In Europe, you talk about car fleet. On a global scale, you talk about business travel or multimodal mobility, such as car sharing, ride hailing, or even in the USA, you would talk about a mobile workplace. So all these services you need to come up or to arrive with a proper portfolio are basically purchased on a central side beside the B2B customers, and they do it highly manual still.
Many people who are listening to this may not have a corporate background. That's why I would go a little bit into describing what corporate mobility means. For example, you have thousands of employees, maybe spread all across the globe, that need to travel, depending on the company, maybe constantly, and they need cars, they need air travel, they need hotel rooms, they need taxi, Uber, maybe even e-scooters. And basically that's what you guys are working in, right?
That's right. Except the topic hotel. So for the solution focus of Airive is to serve the procurement stuff of a B2B customer. Let's go back to one market where we're going to start with, Germany. So in Germany, we are talking about 16,000 B2B car fleets, including more than 2 million cars who are used on a daily basis to operate the corporate business. Yeah. So, and the exchange rate is roughly 900,000 cars a year. And the procurement and the purchasing is done on a central base. So that means there is a procurement officer in the company, and he reaches out to his mobility partners and collects all the necessary information to reach and to arrive to a proper decision. And the proper decision is always triggered by two influence, which is the cost, the travel spend, and the second thing is the CO2 emissions of the mobility. So this is just one example, the car fleet, which is highly important in Europe. We could even compare it to the business travel. In Germany, 189 million business travel trips are held every year. And they all need to be purchased, again, from the maybe same person. And they all need to be efficient in terms of cost and CO2. And this is, let's say, the market portfolio we're talking about. In a later stage, we might even talk about multimodal solutions, such as car sharing, ride hailing, based on user profiles, on mobility scoring. And this all leads to the situation today that mobility, enterprise or corporate mobility, is a cost center. So that means it costs something. And our guess for the future is we might arrive in a situation where it becomes a profit center.
Mm-hmm. Being in a cost center actually means there is like one row of code, usually a number, and actually everything that goes within this cost center is booked on this number, and basically at the end of a year you most likely always been held accountable for it if you're in charge of this cost center. And the main thing people would actually want you to do is getting the costs down. It's what every company does, right?
This is a constant challenge for mobility managers to tear the costs down. I'll give you one example. We had several interviews with major fleet providers and customers operating a car fleet of 2,000, 3,000 cars only in Germany, and 28,000 on a global scale, all company cars. And the challenge for these mobility managers is bring the costs down about 20% in 5 years. And not only this, bring down the CO2 carbon footprint of the mobility by 15% in the same time. That means in 5 years to come. And it obviously seems that these managers are struggling by arriving with this highly ambitious targets within their today analog environment they are operating or used to operate.
Mm-hmm. I get the feeling we've already set the stage for your startup idea. Can you tell us how this thinking led you to what you're doing right now with Airive?
Yes, we believe that it's all based on creating transparency by using digital tools such as machine learning or artificial intelligence, and to arrive with a certain scoring system of the different tools that you would use in mobility. Tools can be an e-scooter, as you said, or a car, or an airplane, or a bus, or whatever. It can as well be a combination of all of these. So talking multimodal, and as well it can be to avoid mobility. Remain in the home office instead of commuting to the daily office, on a daily basis to the office. So there is a combination which we found out that's mixing up the mobility of today, and which is not on a properly base, which we believe can be found in the future.
Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how you guys are actually solving this?
Yeah, we're going to implement two pillars. The first is analytics. So that means it needs to be analyzed what you are doing, what mobility portfolio you have purchased, and what mobility portfolio is necessary to arrive. That's the base of the name, with the goals that you have set yourself in terms of cost and in terms of emissions. And then on the second pillar, you need to purchase this portfolio, and you need to do it on a digital base. So that means we're going to build up an analytics platform and a marketplace platform to buy and to analyze the necessary goods and services to arrive with your targets.
Does it mean you will at one point help the customers like calculate, for example, you could save so much by only using e-scooters within a city, and they tell the people, oh, no more company car, just e-scooters within a city?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Honestly, not. Even though enterprise mobility or corporate mobility is always steered from a central perspective, using a policy which is really from company to company, it's different. Yeah, one company more allows. Would more allow its users or mobility users to operate e-scooters. Other companies wouldn't because of the risk that comes in with using e-scooters. But honestly, every company is operating the company or enterprise mobility steered by a central policy. So it needs to be discussed. But what we're going to do is we want to offer them certain or several scenarios, which you can steer by risk and by cost. And maybe the 0 or 100% approach is not the right one. You mentioned just the 100% approach of using e-scooters. There might be a mix in between of using several mobility devices to arrive on a safe way and on an optimized way in terms of costs and CO2. But I don't believe in 0 or 100. There's always a mix.
I see. And now it should get pretty clear to our audience that you guys are completely targeting a B2B market. What kind of companies are you looking at, like, for the first clients? I do understand right now it would be only Germany. Would it be like the very big corporates, or would it be like SMEs or even smaller, like freelancers?
Talking Germany, it's going to be the start market. I believe that the potential of Airive might be on a global scale. But you need to start on a certain point, and the easiest entry is the market you are familiar with. So that means for us, Germany as a start market, and the MVP of Airive, which will, by the way, start approximately in May this year, is looking for fleet customers. The potential of fleet customers in Germany we are aiming for is 16,000 B2B companies who are operating car fleets bigger than 20 cars. For we believe that the smaller ones, which the market has 4.5 million in Germany, might not really use a professional procurement system. The companies who are bigger than 20 cars, they start to have a real issue on lowering their CO2 carbon footprint and on lowering their costs, their mobility costs.
What I would be curious now is, and how you guys are gonna earn money. Is it like you perform a service, you charge for the service, you help like in a type of corporate affiliate to buy from certain customers, or how do you guys make money?
Yeah, we had a big discussion on this, but we came up with using a SaaS model. So that means we want to establish Airive as a neutral marketplace here, which is not making money by a share of the cost reduce or whatever. So the B2B customers in the first stage sign in. And they pay for, let's say, a test campaign, which means one RFP or one tender just to test the platform. And if they are convinced, they can sign for an annual use model. And depending on the frequency that you are using Airive, you pay a certain fee for this service. On the other side, we believe that the same service at a certain point in time might be interesting for the mobility providers. Today, or in today's world, they are invited to participate to a tender campaign, or to offer certain offers, which could be cars or leasing services or whatever. At a certain point in time, we believe that a proactive approach can be interesting for those mobility providers as well. So winning customers, or to get access to customers in the same region, or on a global scale or European scale or a certain country scale, which are not customers today, might be interesting as well for the sales departments of those providers.
Is it in essence a RFP platform as software as a service, what you guys are running?
Okay, yeah, you can use this term. We're talking about mobility as a service, yeah, and the software here, or the platform idea here, is an enabling tool, nothing more. So we're talking about make use to analyze your portfolio, to restructure, and to buy the right portfolio to arrive at your targets.
If a potential client now watches this, admittedly, we're making this recording on a Saturday in February, and it will be published much later due to my backlog in content. Sorry about that. What would they need to do? We provide a link of your company website. They go down, they sign up, and then they can post an RFP, and you're gonna distribute it to like all the possible participants. Would it work like that?
Sure, it could work like that. But we're in the stage of beginning. So basically, we're talking about reaching out to us. You're all the potential customers are highly welcome to contact me directly, possibly on LinkedIn or on Airive.de, and then we would discuss, let's say, the approach. In the later stage, when the platform will be established, probably in May this year, you can automatically log into the platform, sign a use contract, and then you can make use of the platform, which could be using your portfolio of providers, enriched with maybe providers that are already on the platform, or you can select them from a certain catalog. So what we are going to come up with is we are going to add a certain catalog of mobility providers to the platform, so to have maybe a full market scope here.
I see. We're now running approximately 20 minutes in our recording, and I think the audience has gotten pretty decent understanding of what you guys are doing. I was just wondering, when you're talking about managing global car fleets, that could be a nightmare. Are there some funny stories you could recall that happened to you or to the mobility managers in your past?
Yeah, I could fill a book, honestly speaking. But there's one thing I will clearly mention here. We're not going to manage car fleets. So there are already established service providers to do this. I was formerly working for two of them, and the specifics that I figured out in the time where I was working for those mobility providers was that country by country, the needs, the standards, and the differences are there, and you really arrive with having a complex situation if you globalize mobility. So the need of a business person traveling in Asia is completely different to the need of a business person traveling the Americas or even in Europe. So there is a big differentiation, but it all comes down to pay in to two major triggers, which is the cost, the travel spend, and the CO2 emissions of the company, which is regarded always on a global scale. And this is what we took into our scope here. So we don't want to replace any service providers or different persons. We only want to add a digital trading platform, a digital marketplace to buy greener, cheaper and better mobility.
I see. And when I just thought about it, if you're just talking about car fleet, I had in mind, for example, if you're in Calgary, which gets very cold in Canada at night, you need parking heater. And if you're somewhere in the Middle East, you of course need air condition. And sometimes I would assume in some areas you need 4-wheel drives and all that stuff. So that could be quite challenging. I can slowly understand that, even though I'd never spent a thought on that, maybe because it's not my main job. Only thing left for me to say is thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you here. As you said, you are a startup of Next Mobility Lab in Mainz, which we are going to interview in due time. As we're proceeding right now, it will be published around Christmas, I do believe.
Okay, Jörn, thanks a lot for having me, and all the best for you. And to all the audience, feel free to contact me in terms of getting and learning more.
As we said, down here in the show notes, there'll be a link to your company website and your LinkedIn profile, and people will have all the opportunity to reach out to you as much as they can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jörn. Goodbye and have a great day.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.